Okay, everybody, apologize for the delay. We're going to get started here. It's 1 o'clock. This is Ed Crowe. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. A couple quick things before we get started. We do record all our webinars, so we put them all on YouTube. So if you want to watch any of the ones we've done recently, you certainly can. It's at Crowe Medicare on our YouTube channel, so you can watch it there. If you have any questions during the webinar, just send them in to the questions section of the webinar, and I will answer them or try to answer them at the end. Also, I wanted to mention is last week I did a webinar on a much longer one than this one will be. This one will probably only run 15 minutes, 20 minutes tops. But last week I did one on various types of Medicare leads, and I tried to not only talk about them, but talk about best practices to work them. So if that's something you're interested in, we went over inbound calls, mailers, seminars, a bunch of lead types. It was pretty long, but anyway, if you want to go and kind of pick the section, it might be helpful to some of you, for specific types of leads you're looking for best practices for. And that was done last week, and again, it's on the YouTube channel. So for future reference, if there's any webinars you want to watch when we have them, and you can't make the time, if you just register for it, you will get emailed the recording of it. And again, you can always go on YouTube and watch it too. So either way, you can see them whether you attend or not. So today we're going to talk about how to manage and grow a Medicare book. I took a little different angle on this today. I'm kind of harping on an issue that was applicable to myself, and I see it with a lot of people. So I thought I'd try to give kind of a scenario and see if it resonates a little with some folks. It didn't with me, so maybe it will with you guys. So we'll talk about diminishing returns on a book, the idea that when a book gets big enough, you get much less productive with it. Talk about what the saturation point is for that to happen. It's different with different people, for sure, but we'll talk about that. The concept, and this is kind of the theme of the webinar, is adding staff, hiring help. So we'll hit on that. Does it make sense financially to add help? Talk about AEP retention and growth, and then the concept of selling more, which we're kind of programmed to, for whatever reason, programmed to always try to sell more versus better retention. Kind of hit on that topic as well. So having said that, let's get started. If you have questions, I've had a couple people that have joined me since I've started rambling on here. If you have questions, just go ahead and shoot them into the webinar, and I will answer them at the end for you. Okay, so diminishing returns on a book. So at some point, your book is going to become a full-time job just to maintain it. It happens to everybody when they grow a bigger book. I really don't know many agents that haven't had that occur. If you succeed in the business, if you stay in it and you grow a large book of business, at some point you're going to be working full-time just to write enough cases basically to maintain it. Because you have people who pass away. If retention isn't great, every year you're writing cases and it's just replacing what you have. So we'll talk about, and then growth stops at that point. So it happened to me for sure. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about client servicing, the little things that consume time, writing new business. And when the book gets big enough, if you're out writing business, you have no one. If you don't have help, you have no one to answer the phones to service your clients, and also you have no one to answer the phones to get those referrals. So I think you wind up missing a lot more referrals than you might think. So at that point, you're really just working on maintaining the book and writing business, and working on the actual business itself, meaning your agency or your book of business, yourself as a self-employed person. That becomes secondary. It kind of stops. The evolution of your business kind of stops. And lastly, it can become really frustrating when that happens. You're working your ass off and your revenue is not going up anymore. So we're going to hit on that theme. I'm going to use a real life example. This is from a few years ago, however, but it's still a real example. So agent gets a book, builds up about 500 clients. About 350 of those are Advantage, 150 of them are Med Sups. Renewals, and again, this is a few years ago, so commissions were lower back then, but renewals were coming in of about 144,000 a year. Total comp, because you get a little more on new, obviously, was around 170. But this was the saturation point for the person, 500 clients. I know some agents that have books of, they manage by themselves books of 1,200, 1,500 people. So the point where you can't handle it anymore is different for different people. In this example, it's about 500, maybe a little more, but right around that area. So anyway, total comp was around 170 a year. Obviously, the book was growing, so referrals started to increase. The problem is the referrals would call and they wouldn't get an answer because the agent was on the road writing business. So they get a voicemail, and that's a quick way to blow a referral up, is if they don't get somebody. So they'd get a voicemail, and then just a lot of referrals were getting missed. So people would call in saying they were referred. They wouldn't get a call back right away, or sometimes it took longer than that. And ultimately, it makes people pissed. And when you make referrals mad, what do? They go back to the person that referred them and said, hey, such and such sucks. They didn't get back to me in a timely manner. So in this case, a book of 500 was starting to become detrimental, I guess is the word I'll use. So servicing the clients then becomes frustrating. You got to service the existing clients, and you know how it works. They're going to ask a lot of simple questions, but all time-consuming ones. Creativity with marketing stopped. Calls to existing clients during AEP started to suffer, and then later on, sometimes not happen at all. And when you do that, if you're not calling your existing clients prior to AEP, then the retention rate suffers. So retention was right around 85%, was about the lowest. So at that point, they had to write 75 new clients a year to maintain the book. So just to keep it where it was, you got to write 75 clients just to get back to square one. Referral gifts weren't being sent out. It definitely was known in a concept, and the person wanted to do it, but they didn't have time. And then the other things that fell completely off the radar were important ones: networking in our business. This is a referral business, so networking is really important. Relationships with carrier reps, which is still, I think, really undervalued, but super important. That fell off completely. And then, obviously, keeping and finding new relationships with centers of influence suffered a lot. So in this case, this example was me. I lived it and did this. And I don't think when I was in it, I didn't realize what a poor job I was doing, managing referrals, making contacts with people. I was really miserable because I was doing a lot of service, and I knew the book really wasn't growing anymore. There's some people on this call that actually knew me at this time frame and know exactly what I'm talking about. It made me almost want to quit, I should say, multiple times. But what's interesting about it, and I think this is the thing that definitely was a problem for me, and I talked to a lot of agents, so it's not applicable to everyone, but this is more often the case than not, is I was told multiple times from people who had built large businesses, Ed, hire help. You got to hire help because you're not going to grow anymore. You're at a point where you're just going to work and work and work, and until you hire help, you're going to be mired in what you're doing right now. So I was told that for about 3 years. So it took me 3 years to pull the trigger on that. And the question is, why did it take so long? And why do a lot of agents have that similar issue? I think part of it is we're resistant to change. And again, I'm not speaking for everyone. I know some people on this call that have quickly staffed up, scaled their business, and hired help, but there's just as many that haven't. And the majority of agents I talk to haven't, including myself. It didn't. So I think part of it is resistance to change. Maybe it's the idea of you really don't want to have to deal with another person. I think in my case, that might have been some of it. And then I think a lot of it is the short-term thought process. Meaning, well, I'll hit it on the next slide. For me, part of the problem was short-term thinking. All I could think about was how much less I'd be making. Meaning, if I brought somebody in to help and scale the business, all I looked at is, well, this is X amount of dollars less I'm going to be getting because I got to pay that person. And I think that's a prevalent thought with a lot of us. Anyway, after 3 years of that, I finally did hire somebody begrudgingly, after I'd been kind of encouraged, probably the wrong word, kicked in the ass enough to finally hire somebody. And after some training with that new person, they did the following things for me. So they took all my easy service calls off of me. So all the calls of where are my ID cards? Why am I paying this copay? I hate this plan. I want to change it. Email or mail me an application. As soon as I hired that person, I no longer had to do those things. And I realized those things were taking like pretty much half of my day up. When you're living in it, you don't realize it. So I think I just didn't understand it because I was just doing it every day. But once I put them in place and they started doing those things for me, it was pretty shocking, quite frankly. Other things they did, and I'm trying to do this as an example, but also as a suggestion to people who I do hear people a lot say, well, if I hire somebody, what am I going to have them do? So I'm trying to kind of cover both bases here. The other thing they did, which was huge for me, is called my entire book prior to AEP. So we came up with sorted clients by product they were in, came up with a simple script for each, and I had my person that I hired call prior to AEP, call the people with their script to see if they wanted to change plans, stay the same. Turned out, about half of them just wanted to stay the same, but the fact that we called them reinforced that we were still servicing them. And then the half that didn't want to stay the same, they took notes, they got a list of their doctors, medications, and they tracked it all for me. They also started handling all my licensing and contracting, which was another thing. They sent out thank you notes and referral gifts. So at that point, I started sending out referral gifts. I knew other agents who had done it. I wanted to do it, but just never had time. And I can tell you, for people on the call, if you don't send out referral gifts, you might think it's cheesy and silly, but it works. It is cheesy and silly, but it certainly works. We started sending out $15 Dunkin' Donuts gift cards. We use Dunkin' Donuts because they put your logo and your phone number on the card, and they can be recharged. And then me being cheap, I experimented with $10 cards, and I found it didn't make a difference. So you don't need to do 15. I did 10. It's the idea that counts, the thought that counts, the recognition. It really has very little to do with the amount. I mean, you could even do $5, honestly. But the point is, the thank you note and referral gift over time doubled the referrals that I was getting, and I was getting a fair amount. But it took about 8 months to kick in, maybe a little longer, but it literally doubled them. She would also add all my clients to my CRM. I hadn't been doing that at all, or when I did, it sucked. It was really haphazard. Got my office completely organized, started taking all this stuff off my plate, and importantly, started answering the phone when I was gone on the road selling. Because back then I was selling face-to-face and doing seminars. So I had somebody here at the office. I had an office at that point. Again, some people on this call know, a very low budget, not a great area office, but it was an office nonetheless. But I had somebody there to answer my calls and return the messages too. And then ultimately they started handling my schedule and booking all my appointments for me as well. It made a massive, like a life-changing difference. It really did. And the question was that I had to myself, why did I wait 3 years to do it? And again, I think the biggest thing was probably just general reluctance to change, but probably just being cheap and saying, well, this extra money I'm paying this person, I'm going to make that much less. So the point is, I hired help in 3 years. Here was the change for me. The retention on my book went to about 95% and stayed there. New sales went to an average of about 120 a year. It had been half that prior. I added 12 sub-agents, got myself to an MGA contract level. So not only was I getting overrides working with agents, but I was getting that MGA override on my own business as well. My referrals, because referral gifts were going out, increased by 50%. And I started placing, a little over $1 million of annuity business as well when I really hadn't been doing any before. All because I hired somebody. So overall, my income doubled. And I was also able to start growing an agency, which I never could have done without help. So the question is, does it make financial sense to hire help? Yes. I mean, if they're utilized, which it's not hard to utilize the person, it makes complete sense. Maybe not immediately. And that was what was blowing me up, is I just looked at the first month and said, oh, I'm down this much money now. But after a little bit of time, and it didn't take near as much as I thought, it kicked in, and I started making substantially more money than I ever could have made on my own. I think we tend to think about things right now and not look into the future, especially when you're working with something such as Medicare that is, it's a renewal business. It's a recurring revenue business. Sorry, I went on a little tangent there. I just wanted to talk about it because I just see it. It happened to me, and it's so prevalent. I see so many people. I know agents. I know an agent that has a book of 1,500 people, manages them all by himself. I don't know how he does it, but he does. But he's very talented and skilled. It just makes me realize if he hired some help, how much bigger that book would grow, how much more money that person would make. But the book size for everybody, it's a different amount, but at some point it's going to happen, and you're going to get stuck in neutral unless you get some help in the office, or even if you don't have an office, just getting help that's remote. For AEP, that was a big difference. I mean, AEP, it was, as I said on here, still AEP. I don't know about people on the call. I'm not a big fan of AEP. It's necessary. You got to renew your clients, but I slowed down during AEP. I was a seminar person, so I tended to write a lot of my business outside of AEP. AEP was just kind of a burden because you had to renew all the new clients, but it made it much more manageable. And I was actually able to start selling during AEP because I had my person in the office calling all my existing clients. And I see I've had a bunch of people come on since I've been blabbering on here. So if you have questions, just go ahead and send them into the webinar, and I'll answer at the end. The other benefit of this was something that came up later for me, and this was much more recent now. What if something happens? If you're a single person shop, you're managing the book, answering all the questions, writing all the new business, and you get sick, or who knows, personal situation, family problem, and you can't work, you're dead in the water. My example is COVID. I got COVID before COVID came out, really. It was December of, I guess, 2019, or whether that was 2019 or 2020, whatever it was, but the December when we just started hearing about it, and it destroyed me. I basically didn't work for 2 months. And had I not had, Lisa and Teal in the office, the business would have been in severe trouble. It really would have been. But I was able to be sick. I had them here to help me, and it was able to stay afloat and do fine, even without me. All right, enough of that tangent about hiring help. Hopefully, just give us some thought. If that situation seems similar to you, give us some thought. I know it's easy to write it off, but it does make a massive difference. Let's talk for a minute about something else I see. And again, these are all things that I kind of looked at incorrectly myself, so I'm a little more aware of it when I hear others talk about it. New sales versus retention. Obviously, we need new sales, especially if you're somebody on the call who doesn't have a book. You got to build a book. But if you have even a book of 100, 200 clients, really think about the psychology of this. The average cost per acquisition to get a new client, and this is a generous number too. The carriers use a much higher one, but for an agent, it's around $150 a client. So it costs us $150 for every new client we get. That's about what we spend on average. On the carrier side, it's much higher, much higher. But not to mention, along with that, it costs money to get them. And think of all the time, effort, and energy you put into signing up a new person. So existing clients, and this is obvious, clearly obvious, but existing clients, they're already on the books. We're making renewal revenue on them. We don't have to obtain them. They're costing us nothing, so we got to learn to keep them. And I know even on the carrier side, the carriers, they push new sales, new sales, new sales. Well, they need have numbers they need to hit. But us as agents, we really, with recurring revenue that we have, keeping our existing clients should be paramount to us. Really should. For some reason, the psychology of it is we see a new client as a bigger priority. We got to get new people, and we don't put a priority on keeping the existing ones, and it's simply just an incorrect thought process for us as agents. It really is. Servicing existing clients very well leads to more referrals. A lot of referrals in Medicare. People sit around talking about their Medicare plans. They don't talk about their life insurance. So a lot of referrals in Medicare, and if you service existing clients, they're going to refer more business. It's a given. It's going to happen. If they're happy with you, they're going to refer more people. So the ultimate goal really with an agency, and why you build a Medicare book up is, the ultimate goal is to get enough steady referrals so you can slow down on the grind of prospecting for new business. No, do you want to phase new business out? No, but the idea that I'm just going to rip away and try to sell new business every single year and never slow down, it kind of defeats the purpose of a Medicare book in my mind. But if a Medicare book is serviced well, it will get enough referrals where it can grow purely on referrals. Last thing about referrals is you need to ask for them. Most of us don't. And I actually ask around about this and just in conversations ask people. And the majority, this might surprise some of you, the majority of agents don't ask for referrals. I can tell you I didn't. I got lazy and busy and really stopped even bringing it up. And we think of referrals as it's got to be like some kind of cliche or cheesy pitch. It doesn't. You can have an easy way to work it into the conversation. Mention you do referral gifts. You'd be happy to help out friends or family, people turning 65. You're taking on new clients. You love working with people. It can be some kind of easy pitch, some kind of easy talk that you have with every client you sell. And I'm sure there's plenty of you on the call that do that, but there's just as many that don't. So asking for referrals, it's the easiest sale you'll ever get, and it's just something that should be just automatic and part of your sales process. And for a lot of us, it isn't. Okay, so kind of on that same strategy here, talking about product strategy, I do get to talk to a lot of agencies. I work with a lot of agencies, and I get to see some that have packaged things really well that, I kind of copy and try to repeat for the rest of us. One of them I really like, and this is from an agent that's an agent who has an agency that's very big online, very big, in fact. They package the products, and I loved the idea of it. I thought it was really, really cool. And they package supplements and advantage plans, and they do it with a good, better, best offering. So when they meet with a client, whether it's a meeting, whether it's on the phone, whether it's online, they have basically 3 packages they're offering. And this substantially helps with their cross-selling and their extra, we'll call it ancillary product sales. And the reason I brought this question up with him is because he does huge amounts of ancillary products and makes a lot of money from it. And I was just asking him how he does it, and this is how he does it. So he's got a good, better, best offering. I put it in the other order, best, better, good. But when they work with clients and they've got this packaged on a sheet, on a form, they've got the best offering. So that's an advantage plan with hospital indemnity, cancer, skilled nursing, and accident. I actually forgot one. I think they have one other thing on there as well. It's evading me right now. Then they have the middle option, which is the better option, and that's advantage, hospital indemnity, and cancer. And then the good option is advantage and hospital indemnity. That's as low as they go. So I don't know if anybody can guess when they offer these 3 offerings for advantage packaged with other products, what one sells 90% of the time. It's the middle one. So 90% of the time, they're getting an advantage with an indemnity, with a GTL usually they use, and a cancer plan. And all those hospital indemnity and cancer plan sales adds up to substantial money for them. But I like the concept. I thought it was a good one. They have it in writing. It's on a glossy kind of sheet that they use when they meet with clients. Do the same thing on supplements. They can be packaged in a similar manner, but usually it's dental and vision is included in that for obvious reasons. So I've seen them do that with a Plan G, a Plan N, but I specifically see them do it with a high deductible G. And the reason they do that is because you can go after anybody on a supplement with a high deductible G plan. Maybe somebody's got the best price plan N in the market, best price plan G. Usually you couldn't touch them. But you go after them with a high deductible G, you can make a pretty solid argument as to why they should switch. Now, the problem with high deductible G is we're all probably thinking it. The commission's terrible. It is. It is terrible. But it's not near as bad if you package it up. And last time I checked, selling a high deductible G with a couple ancillary products is a lot better than selling nothing. So they would package the high deductible G with indemnity, cancer, accident, dental, and vision. A lot of products, but they'd kind of sell it as one package. And they would go in, especially in guaranteed issue states, which there's 4 of them, and also birthday rule states. They'd go in up against somebody with a G or an N, pitch them on the high deductible G, and even with all those extra products in guaranteed issue states, that high G with all that extra stuff comes out about the same price or better than the regular G. And it's pretty easy to show all the extra benefits with all those extra products and make a case for why that's, even if the price is the same, why that's a better option. So anyway, it's a really, really cool strategy. I liked it, just something to think about. They do really well with it. Okay, so leads. So a couple things with this. I'm trying to kind of stay in the same theme here, but the topic of, we're always pushing to sell new. Leads are going to be a grind no matter what we do. I mean, what I suggest is find one that works from a cost per acquisition standpoint and stick with it and enhance it. I think we always try to find something better. I know I did. I'd find a lead program that worked, but I'd be like, this is hard. So I would not put as much effort into that because I was busy a quarter of the time looking for something better. Where really, if you think about it, what I should have done is found something that worked and just worked really hard at getting better at that strategy, enhancing it, getting better at my craft, getting better at using that lead strategy. But again, I said half effort, but we always put a little less effort in than we could. A lot of us, I shouldn't say all of us, because we're always thinking there's something a little better out there. So whether you're doing seminars, retail events, tabletop, Facebook leads, online leads, inbound calls, or whatever it is you're doing, if it's working to a degree, just focus on getting better at it and enhancing it and making it better versus looking for something else. The one exception I would say to this, because I just said don't look for other things, but the one exception is I think no matter what program you're doing for leads, maybe you're a seminar person, maybe you're just on the phone all day, whatever it may be, is I think as you're doing that, you should always be trying to build referral relationships, because that's going to enhance any lead program you're doing. Just working leads and relying on leads is tough. So if you're constantly looking for relationships, you can build referral relationships. Ultimately, long term, it's going to make you a lot happier. You're going to write a lot more business. Most people don't do this any longer. A lot don't. Kind of an old school thought process of, talking to ACA agents who don't write Medicare. P&C agents are a big one. Group health brokers, attorneys, final expense agents, relationships at places like food pantries. A lot of people just don't want to put themselves out there anymore and go meet and greet and talk to people. But if you build a good referral relationship with one of these groups of people, they can be a tremendous referral source. And if they are, pay them. You can legally pay another professional $100 a sale. And if you get somebody who's willing to refer you business readily, pay them. I've got an agent that had a relationship with a P&C agency, and they give him 4 or 5 leads a week. He closes most of them. Huge for him, obviously. Huge. The one thing I'll warn you about is the biggest thing that blows these relationships up is, and it happens way more than you think, probably like 9 out of 10 times, I see it happen a lot, is the agent will start paying the referral source the $100 an app, which they can do, $100 a sale. But then they'll get lazy with it. And then the agency referring the business got used to getting $100 an app, so they're really working hard to refer business. Agent starts forgetting to pay them, and they have to chase the agent for the money. That's going to go south really quick. So if you're going to do this strategy, get a relationship, pay them for sales you make. Make sure you're diligent about it and you don't fall off with it, so they don't have to chase you for it. But if you can find that, it can help you a great deal. That's it. Quick topic today. I'm going to see if we have any questions. I just wanted to run through that. I went a little longer than I thought. Geez, I talk a lot, I guess. But thanks for attending. Let's see if we have any questions. Remember, you can watch all our recorded videos on YouTube. And let's see if we have questions. Let's see. Okay, so somebody said, good question too. Just wondering to what extent the big time drain as you look at the whole book is either PDP or the RX portion of MAPD. So how could that be addressed efficiently, compliantly, and cost effectively? Yes, I think it's a great point. PDP in the drug portion of MAPD is a huge drain. It's going to lead us right back to you have somebody in the office. Well, a couple things. First of all, you should keep all of them in either Connector or Sunfire. It saves the drug lists. That way you don't have to redo them every year. So you've got your clients in there with their drug list. That when somebody from your office calls them, they can just ask them if the list changed at all, and then you can quickly and easily rerun it. That'll be a huge time saver. I still have a lot of people who are using like Medicare.gov. You can't save that data unless you got the client's username and password. Do it on Connector or Sunfire, a huge time saver for you. And then that's where the help comes in. You can have somebody in the office that is doing that, entering that drug information, calling those clients, editing that drug list, and then just, even if they're not licensed, they can still do that. They can get it all set up, and then you can just run it and suggest the plan. But yes, great point. Huge time suck on drugs. It's gotten even worse. Doing it through Connector and Sunfire and having help to take care of the administrative part of that is key for that. Next question. Okay, I like this one too. Was this person that you hired already licensed, or did they get licensed over time? They got licensed over time. Both of them, in fact. Got licensed over time, both people I'm referring to. Good question. Do you see newer successful agents that are close to the age of the Medicare crowd? Kind of, I sell these solutions and use these solutions as well. That's another good topic. Yeah, I do. So the two populations that do well in this space, I mean, anybody can do well in this space, but the two that seem to have it easiest are those people who are Medicare age or older, because they can relate, right? They can do just what you said. And the really young people, because that's the grandchild effect. It's the kind of in-betweeners like Ed sitting here, that's kind of stuck in between. I can't say, I'm on Medicare. I'm certainly not. Nobody's going to mistake me for their grandkid any longer, unfortunately. But anybody can succeed in this business. But I think those two age demographics have it a little bit easier, in my opinion. What's our next one? Let's see. Ed, is this the end game for people without family involved in the business to sell the book as a parting retirement gift to yourself? Yeah, I mean, if you got a family member you can rear up and take over the business for you, that's ideal. But certainly, Medicare books are valuable. There's a high priority on those. People want to buy them, and there's always somebody available to buy them. Let's see what else we got for questions. What, if any, attractive ancillary products are available when selling in New York? Oh, you had to go there on me. New York is tough. New York's tough. Almost all those products I talked about are almost impossible to find in New York. New York, you're pretty much limited to dental and vision, really, unless you're going to go like the final expense route, which does couple, with Medicare. Even term can sometimes too. I've certainly seen plenty of term sales for people, 65 to 70. But to answer your question, dental, vision, term, and final expense. There are a couple companies. We have a contract with one that does sell in New York, approved in New York, that does sell ancillary lines, like indemnity, cancer, that kind of thing. The comp's much lower. It's New York, but that is available. But New York's harder. Okay, next question. When you pay referral source, is it on the books or off the books? Put it on the books. Pretty easy one for me. If you're going to get a lot of referrals and you're going to be paying a lot of referral fees of $100, you're going to want to 1099 that person, and you can do so. Next question. Ed, you mentioned hiring help. What comp range would you estimate is reasonable today? Joe, that depends a lot on where you live. A lot. That answer here in Connecticut, especially where we are in Connecticut, is very different than maybe if you live in Missouri. So it's hard for me to give you a real answer on that. It depends. It really depends. It's a tough one. Maybe that's something offline we could talk about, but it's really what the market dictates, and also has a lot to do with the person you're talking to. Their situation. Obviously, you hire somebody who's just got a degree out of college. They might be looking for more money than somebody who maybe their kids are grown up, moved out of the house, and they live down the road and are just looking to pick up some work. You mentioned skilled nursing as an ancillary sale where you're referring to long-term care. No, the long-term care market's pretty tough at this stage. I mean, other than the hybrid type products like the old Money Guard or something like that. But there are companies that have skilled nursing riders. GTL, for example, has a skilled nursing rider you can buy. Somebody said, where were you 10 years ago? This is great information. Well, thank you. I could have used it myself 10 years ago, but I wasn't there to tell me either. Okay, let's see. What carriers do you recommend for ancillary offerings? Well, it depends on what state you're in to a degree, but I'll give you some common ones. GTL is really good on a lot of these things. Hospital indemnity, cancer in most states, skilled nursing. So GTL is a good one. Cigna's good. Humana has some pretty good products in some states. So depends on the states you're in, but that's a place to start. GTL, I think, would probably be the first one I'd recommend. Cigna, depending on your state. Humana, depending on the state. Aetna, in some states. There's a lot of companies that offer them. Other companies, too, that I didn't mention. Let's see. Do most agents explain to prospects clients that it won't cost them a penny more to deal with them versus doing it on their own, or they won't save a penny doing it themselves? That's a good question. I mean, I think, to give you my version of that answer, I think more than you'd think, clients think you're going to charge them something. So I know, like in the generic a T65 seminar presentation I put out, one of the first things in there is how we do business, and it mentions that we don't charge you anything. The insurance companies pay us. The price is the same with or without us, and I equate it to an auto and home agent, and I say, have you ever worked with an auto and home agent? Price doesn't change with or without them. All they do is try to find you the best valued product for the type of product you need. So I think it's important to explain that to them. I think we assume as agents they know we're not going to charge them, but I've had plenty of people where, when I was selling more, where the conversation got really awkward at the end, and they're like, well, do we owe you money? And I just remembered then that, yeah, they really don't understand this. So I think you hit both bases. You don't charge them anything. Price is the same with or without you, and your value is you cost them nothing to shop and find them the best product. Let's see if we got any other questions. It looks like that's it for questions. Those are great questions. Some things there I didn't really think to bring up, so I appreciate you asking. Looks like that's all we have. Well, I appreciate you coming on today. Hopefully it was helpful for some of you. I know, some of the stuff I even saw some people on the call who I know have help, and or maybe have a book that they want to keep at a certain size and don't want to grow it and are happy. So I know it's not applicable to everybody. But hopefully it was helpful to some. Somebody did mention it's a good idea to add that your email signature. Yes, please. That's a big one. If we're salespeople and we want people to be able to call us back, you have to put your contact information on your email signature. There's a lot of that. Hey, give me a call back. Thanks, Ed. And I have no contact information on my signature. So if you don't have your contact info on your email signature, throw it on there, please. Let's see. Question is, we'll be sending out an email for a separate call distribution. I'm not sure I understand that last question, so if you want to give me a call, go ahead. About the distribution play, I'd be happy to answer it for you. They'll give me a ring, shoot me an email. Other than that, and also thank you, Mary, for bringing that up about the email signature. That I'm glad you brought that up. Definitely need to mention that. So appreciate that. Thank you. It looks like that's all we have for questions. I appreciate you coming on today. Hopefully it was helpful. I got to get ready. We're going to do an agency Zoom meeting. So for those who want to attend that, that's a little different. I'm going to do a quick run through of this, but like 5 minutes, just mentioning most of the same things. And then our Zoom meeting is an open forum where people can talk, ask questions. So feel free to join us. If you haven't, you might find it helpful. All right, thanks. Hope you all have a great day, and talk to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.